Welcome everyone, our fourth edition of and this time we are talking about in 2016, and it's a long time ago. The themes we encountered then seem to be very much at stake at this very moment as well, like the possibilities of war, nuclear weaponing, all these big countries facing each other in threat. And the big question, of course, what can we do about it? And maybe we can talk, there's a lot to tell about North Korea. And we thought the best way to tell what we encountered there was to follow the stages of our journey. And it all started with the call, which is not such an easy call to be called to go to North Korea.
No, it actually was a very crazy thing. And it started even more weird with a woman sending me a mail. I didn't know her. She said, I got in or this call to give you somehow I thought, okay, let's just do it. And she came over. She gave me this foot massage, and during the massage, I started crying uncontrollably. And I got this vision of a woman from North Korea, an old woman standing in a temple and saying to me, please come to North Korea. We need your help. It's getting so dark here. And that was when the whole thing started. Now, that was a very strange vision, but I talked with some friends about it, with Jos, with others. And in the end, we decided to go 5 people, but that was quite a long process to go through that.
Well, in fact, the real decision to go was when I went to you in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
In April of 2016, I went to I thought I'm going to pay a visit to Amsterdam and to Tom. And when I remember when I was driving to Amsterdam, I felt like I was on a kind of political journey. We were going to meet to talk about state affairs. I remember that was a crazy thought in my head, like, we are going to talk about very important things, not knowing at all what it would be about. And when we got there in Amsterdam, you said we have to go to the Temple of Quan, because there is a Temple of Quan in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam, yeah, which is the next slide. But first we have this one, because all the stories we know about North Korea are from the news and from internet. And of course, probably you know this crazy lady who's always reading the news from North Korea, and she has a very funny voice. And it's like a sort of puppet show. Very weird how that's all being brought to the people there. And the other thing I knew from North Korea was a man that escaped from one of the concentration camps that are there. There are thousands and thousands of people and family being put into camps, being tortured. And one man escaped and told his story. And that was really very, very dark. And I felt like in that time, North Korea was one of the darkest places on earth. And it needed some light, some change.
Yeah, in fact, we didn't know so much about North Korea, only this general impression, like these images you see here, or the darkness of it.
Yeah.
Because when we got this call, the whole impact of it was not very clear to us yet.
No, it became step by step a journey where we went, okay. And also we found out there was a little traveling company in Holland that could lead us into North Korea. In that time, I never thought about going there, or even the possibility that you could go there. But there was a traveling company, a young woman, that organized a whole trip in the end.
So you are allowed as a tourist to go there, but you have to follow the rules, of course.
Yeah.
But first,
the Quan Temple.
The Quan Temple.
Yeah.
That's where we met, and we went to can you tell a bit about the Quan Yin Temple, maybe?
Yeah, it's in the Chinese district in Amsterdam, very close to Central Station. And the Chinese built there a temple for Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion. Now, funny enough, if you walk into that temple, you don't find the image of Kuan Yin as I imagine her, but you find a kind of warrior god with thousands of weapons and ready to chop off your head. And that was what we saw.
When we entered.
We sat down, we did a meditation.
There was a little statue behind
us. There was
us.
a little Kuan Yin statue. And then we got all these signs that day about North Korea.
Yeah.
People dressing up in North Korean dress.
We got a message from Kuan Yin in the temple.
That's right. Yeah. And the call to come.
And when we were walking through Amsterdam, in fact, we met, these kind of synchronicities telling you what is at stake. We met a group of young women dressed in Korean dresses, traditional dresses. We saw this big Korea poster in a travel agency. It was like the city of Amsterdam was telling us, there is something important here. You have to go.
Yeah. And I think why Kuan Yin is so important, because this compassion is needed in this time of darkness. And especially when people start to talk about war and about nuclear war and threats, what can you do? You cannot fight the darkness. You can only embrace it and let it in and hold people in your heart. And that's, I think, the power of Kuan Yin. And that's what we wanted to bring to North Korea.
She is really the goddess of compassion. Huh?
Yeah.
Eastern goddess of compassion.
And then we talked to our friends. Here you see on the photo from left to right, Anne, Jos, Anita, then Lee, which is one of our guides, myself, Annelies, and Kyung-mi, the other guide. But the 5 people that went, we had a whole process. Were we going to go with 4 or 5?
Yeah.
That was an important process beforehand.
Yes.
And we felt that if we would go with 4, it would give stability, and we knew each other, we could work with each other, but you were rather new in the group.
Yes, in fact, I was hesitating.
Yeah.
I was hesitating because it was a very scareful thought for me to go to North Korea. It was not handy at that time. I had a new job. I had no time. It was a lot of money to go there. So I said, I don't think I can come. And so you decided with the 4 of you, and you felt very comfortable in that because you know each other very well. And then suddenly I felt it's not okay to go with 4. The 4 people that decided to go were very, very strong. I knew, but the cipher, the amount of 4 seemed wrong. And so I said, I feel I have to go. We have to be 5, because 5 is the number of movement, of change, of the 5th element, or something of change. And 4 would stabilize, but also make it immobile.
Yeah. And funny enough, as you see in the picture, we end up with 7 because our guides, Lee and Kyung-mi, we met them at the airport in Pyongyang. They were assigned to us. They didn't leave our side for the whole 10 days. And there are different reasons for that, because they are not supposed to leave sight of us. They have to control us so that we get into the wrong, because they're afraid that we would influence them. But we became an enormous team, and we had a very beautiful connection with them.
I think they were here also to protect us, because we don't know the rules of the country. It's a dangerous country. You can easily do something wrong. And you can, they have to protect us by showing us, this is the way we act here. This is how we do things here. So they showed us the way, and we could not leave them only in our rooms, in the hotels. We were free to talk to each other and do whatever, but otherwise we really had to follow the rules.
Yeah, and what we didn't know yet was, well, we assumed we were, but we were very well guarded, not only by the two guides, but also by the police and by secret agents. We found out later, actually. We'll talk about more about that, how that went.
But when we first met them, they're adorable people. That was it. They stayed adorable till the end. But they also made us feel at ease because we came in a very strange country. And when we arrived, we thought, okay, it's very green. When we saw it from the plane, very green. We landed, we thought, okay, it's not so weird after all. It's a bit retro. People look a bit retro in style, but it was nice. It was comfortable when arriving.
Yeah, and they took our passports.
Yes.
And we didn't get them back for the whole trip.
Only at the end.
And also we didn't have any mobile contact anymore. There was no reach whatsoever. So we were in a sort of prison, and they were our guards, our friendly guards.
And we had a good contact with them. Yeah. Okay. So our first stop was in the capital city, Pyongyang. And
here you see a bit how it looks. It has all these soft colors, rose and pink, blue, greenish. So it looks as if it's like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Kind of sweet, environment, atmosphere.
And there's also this music in the beginning of the day and at the closure of the day, which feels a bit like a fairy tale music, a very ding 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 like this, through loudspeakers. But at the same time, it's a bit hypnotizing and it feels dangerous as well. So there's a strange atmosphere of comfort and discomfort when you go into that. And you can also see on the picture how the streets are quite empty.
Yeah,
no cars.
Almost no cars. People walk very quietly, very controlled. Nothing unexpected happens.
They don't even cross our eyes. They look straight before them. They don't say hello.
We were kind of invisible people from another planet.
Yeah.
And of course, what we had to do, that was part of the program. The whole program was really very structured and laid out in front of us. We had to bow down and pay our homage to the great leaders. And here you see on the left, I think it's Kim Il-sung, the grandfather. Next to him, the father of Kim Jong-un, the
president.
And we put their flowers in front of them. And I remember Jos was very adamant. He said, we really have to honor them, even if we think maybe they're not good leaders or tyrants, but let's reach out to their hearts and embrace them in the style of Quan Yin.
Yeah, and thank them that we can visit their countries. Because I don't know what you know about North Korea, but since the big leader, there have been 3 generations of leaders.
Yeah.
And we are now with the grandson, Kim Jong-un is the grandson of Kim Il-sung. We'll tell about them.
It's the big Kim family.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of people working with them. And in this other picture, you see the largest hotel of the world, which is standing in Pyongyang, but it seems to be completely empty. So that's also part of the facade of North Korea. You see beautiful things, but you know it's all not true. There's something very strange about that.
You don't see what you get, and you don't get what you see. So, but we felt attracted to that hotel, which looks a bit like a rocket in Pyongyang, because we felt an attraction there, as if some important things happened there.
Yeah,
as if leaders were meeting there. So we asked them if we could drive around it, and for us it had a symbolical meaning of the power,
of the hierarchy of power. And there's one person in the top, that's Kim Jong-un, and then his sister and all the people underneath that. So after we got its introduction to North Korea, to our guides, to the country, we went to our first sacred place, actually, that we wanted to go to, Mount Pike. We could fly there with a little airplane, which was quite an old airplane.
It's in the north.
And it's almost in the north, close to the border of China. Actually, the border is running right through this lake. And it's called the Lake of Heavenly, or the Heavenly Lake.
The Heavenly Lake. Yeah.
And it is connected to the history of North Korea, because this is where we went. This is I think it's close to the airport here that we landed. We're just coming out of the airplane.
And we had to meet and greet the statue of Kim Il-sung, so the grandfather.
Yeah. And Kim Il-sung, it's very important to know a bit of the history of North Korea, because from 1910, North Korea was invaded by the Japanese. For 35 years, they were controlled by the Japanese in a most brutal way. People were killed, tortured. It was really a really very dark time. And Kim Il-sung was the leader who came from this mountain with his rebel army to free Korea.
And maybe it's important to tell also that there was a king in Korea who was afraid to lose his power, and he asked the help of the Japanese.
Yeah.
And that's how they ended up invading the country and really Italy.
And it became a colony which was forbidden. All the old traditions, the old stories, the old temples were all forbidden. And there was a huge temple complex at the Kumgangsan with 100 Buddhist temples, and they were all completely destroyed. So it was a brutal time. And it's the base of the trauma of North Korea, because what happened afterwards is that after Japan had to capitulate after the Second World War, they lost North Korea, and it was divided at that time by Russia and by the United States. And then the trauma went on for North Korea, because these two big countries started to have their proxy war in Korea.
South to capitalist America.
Yeah, so it became divided, a big demilitarized zone between the two parts. And I remember reading one story of a pilot from the United States that went with bombs into North Korea.
The Korean War, that was.
That was the Korean War.
Beginning of 50s.
Yeah, when he returned with his airplane, he still had all the bombs in his plane, and he said there was nothing to bomb anymore. The whole country was destroyed, devastated, with napalm, with bombs. So after the Japanese trauma, they experienced the trauma of the United States. And the people in North Korea still call United States the evil empire. And if you read the stories, you start to understand why. And somehow they were never able to step out of that history, step out of their story, of their trauma, and they became very isolated and angry. And what was done to them, they did also to themselves. So that's why they started to have these concentration camps. There was a lot of poverty. The North Korean people never got out of trauma, basically.
And the big hero of this whole story is the guerrilla leader that really fought the enemies, the Japanese enemy. And so he and his family stayed the real hero of the place, and the story of heroism is being told and retold over and over again. Everything we saw on television was about that.
Yeah.
All the history before this period was erased. So the only thing that North Koreans get into their minds is, again, the big evil, and they are the big saviors. So that is a kind of mental story that is in place there, an idealism, and it brings a lot of horror as well, because as you said, the ones that saved, the saviors or the victims are becoming the perpetrators, which you often see when you get trauma, and you are traumatized and you become the perpetrator yourself. And that is what we saw in that country. And it really struck us, because these people are so refined. In fact, we will see that later, a very infantile, gentle, mystical people, the Koreans, with a very beautiful background and history and absolutely beautiful nature. And it was all destroyed brutally.
Yeah. Now, so we came there with our team, and especially Jos and Anita felt we have to go to this heavenly lake in the north, and we have to go into the crater. It's came there and it was completely misty, rainy down. And we thought maybe it's a few steps. We go down a few steps.
We couldn't see anything. It was like going into Avalon, misty Avalon. You know, you have to go down and you don't know what you're going to get inside.
And what happened was we had to walk down 3,500 steps.
Something like that.
It was an incredible long journey down to come to this water. And here we did a meditation. Energetic work. That's when we tune in, we feel the energies, we feel what needs to be shifted or transformed. And we had to do that all not showing what we were doing, because that was not allowed. You're absolutely not allowed to meditate, to pray, to show any religious sign, because that's forbidden and you can get killed for it. Basically,
that's why we prepared this also the day before in the rooms, where especially Anita could feel the entrance of the mountain and could get in, was invited in. And then the day after, so we did the energetic work day before, and day after we went into the lake, where especially Jos and Anita felt this big light coming out, and being opened.
Golden light opening to this country, actually, and also to release that layer of pain and trauma that we started to feel more and more, actually.
Because that's what we often feel, that underneath the newer history or the pain is a pot of gold, something, an enormous energy that wants to be freed.
So that Mount Paitu was the first step.
Yeah.
Then we went on. We had traveled back through Pyongyang, and we went to a city on the coast, Wonsan. And you see here a first picture of it. And funny enough, during that day, it was Liberation Day.
15th of August.
Very funny. Oh, funny that you remember. It's crazy, of course, to have a Liberation Day in North Korea, but everybody was free, everybody celebrated. And it was the first moment we saw North Korean people, and we could meet them because they were walking also on this pier in the sea. And then the most amazing thing happened. During our walk, we lost our guides.
Yeah, actually. Behind us. They stayed a bit behind us.
They were with Jos and Annelies and Anita. And Anne and me, we were invited by a family on the beach who said, would you like to join us for a picnic and a dinner? And then we thought, okay, let's do it.
We didn't really know, is it forbidden, not forbidden? Because people were inviting us. Yeah.
And it was a nice some word, very, very dancing, taking pictures. But then, of course, at some point, our guides came, and they were kind of smiling. They loved the thing.
Joy we had.
But within 2 minutes, I saw a secret agent with a little earphone standing next to our guides and saying, "Get them out now." And that's when we knew that there were secret agents everywhere, not only controlling us, but also controlling the North Korean people. It's like some sort of KGB, like where East Germany, where you can be, where there's betrayal everywhere.
Yeah. In fact, that day we felt like like we were sitting in the Truman Show, huh?
Yeah.
Because when we were walking up the pier, we also saw the sea. Yeah. It was into the sea, and we remembered that also in the Truman Show was escaping through the sea, and we felt like, oh, it's Liberation Day. Literally, we can do something we never did before. We can be a bit free. But then, just like in the Truman Show, everything is being controlled. Everything also is being orchestrated. That's what we discovered, because we went to several places, like also a school for a vacation, a holiday place for children. And we saw everything that we were invited in was being orchestrated, especially for us.
Yeah.
And we saw more and more of these things, like Dutch people being invited in a church, in a mass, Christian mass.
Yeah.
And in fact, we discovered this is all orchestrated to make it look for us tourists as if normal life goes on here. But it's a Truman Show.
Yeah. It's very funny and frightening also, because when you see thousands of kids in costumes, and they're all there for you, that's really weird, actually. Yeah,
it's a strange thing. Yeah, and it dawns upon you bit by bit.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you think it's normal, and then you see these little signs. Yeah.
So I have a map here of North Korea. You see on the left side, you see Mount Paektu-san in the north. And
on the high side.
And then down you see the border with South Korea, and the demilitarized zone. There's a big zone in between the two countries. It's the most heavily guarded military zone in the world of a border. And we had to go there completely towards the border on the right side, because there was the next place that we were traveling to, the Kumgangsan, or the Diamond Mountains. A very special spiritual place, the abode of Quan, and we had read all about it, and we could go there and travel.
In fact, when I saw these pictures on Google before deciding to go, it's because I saw the pictures of Kumgangsan that I knew I have to go. I have to go. So that was a place that really attracted us.
Powerful place.
Yeah.
Now on the right, you see another picture in North Korea by night, and then you see a very strange thing. South Korea is completely lighted up. North Korea is completely dark. There's no lights there. It's backwards. There are no highways.
There are few empty roads.
Some
built for the presidents.
Some built in the 60s, only with holes in it, and you're not allowed to travel as a North Korean citizen from one place to another, or you need all kinds of permits. But normally, you are not allowed to travel from your own place, actually.
And here, maybe we can also add, we're not going into that, but Northern Korea is very much in control because of this suppressing government, and South Korea seems very free, but it's very much in control because you went there a few years later. It's very much in control because it's highly technological.
Yeah,
extremely.
If you drive there on the highway, every 50 meters, there's a camera that makes a picture, or that even controls your speed, and you can see it in your car, actually. that they constantly look at you. There's no way to escape. And I thought, wow, this is really an image for the future, where we'll go if we get more into this digital control world.
So you think it's two different worlds, but in fact they have the same theme. They control.
Yeah, in two different ways, actually. Yeah. So
we were on our way to Kroon.
Yeah, we slept in a very expensive hotel, a winter resort, which is normally only for the party leaders.
Can only be because it's so big, chic hotel.
All the rest of the country is terribly poor, but this hotel was the best. And although we had beautiful rooms, I slept alone that night, and I had a terrible night. And that's how it kind of started. I started to feel more and more the dark side of the country, the trauma, the concentration camps with all the torture, which I knew was happening, but now I started to feel it in my body, and it was quite frightening, I must say.
Especially at night, these kind of dark themes come up. Because of course, when you go to that kind of country, you don't only do energetical world in general, you do it, especially do the work inside yourself. And we were tested beforehand, before leaving. Might tell a bit about that later. But so you have to see if you're strong enough to face that kind of country and that kind of energies. So you meet these dark forces.
Many times we call this light work, but you could also say it's dark work, because you have to go into the shadow, into the dark spots of the collective consciousness, and to see if you can bring some light there. So it's really very much about light and dark. It's not only about being happy or bringing positive thoughts.
Maybe I can bring that in now. When we were thinking about 4 or 5, what I could very much feel is I have something to bring in that the group doesn't allow, or there is kind of resistance. And I felt not welcome to go and not welcome to do what I had to do, not knowing what it would be. And then we realized beforehand, we were already in the constellation of the country.
Yeah.
We were already experiencing, the 5 of us, the forces that we would meet, like something is not welcome there. It's not so strange. We were not welcome there as a group, in fact, or what we were about to do. So we had to face that unwelcomeness and feel, and at that moment I could feel so much the connection with the green Tara. It's never occurred to me to connect with the green Tara before. And she was so present and felt like in these mountains there, and giving from the earth on such a strength, an enormous strength. She's actually the feminine Buddha, I learned after that, and giving such a strength to and determination, like we are coming, whatever you like, if you like it or not, but we are coming. And so this was a kind of test maybe made before going. Do you have the strength? Do you have the determination to bring what you have to bring? Again, not knowing what it will be.
It's funny to see this picture, because it reminds me of the spiritual warriors, the warriors of the heart. And it's not by fighting or killing people, but it's another fight you have. It's a fight from the heart, and it's really, you have to kill your own demons, all the shadow things you come across from your own ego. That's the real war that you're fighting, actually. And it can be really tough, especially in countries like this.
Yes, and these kind of countries also show you your strength and your power. And a thing I met also in Pyongyang was, when you meet these big forces that rule there, I suddenly felt how big our forces are.
Yeah.
If we connect, if we join each other. Yeah.
I think that's a theme that we would like to stress is the importance of doing this work, of doing light work, of meditation, of praying. It doesn't matter what you do, but the intention to connect to dark places, for instance, now in Ukraine, Mariupol, Kiev, it is so powerful to do this work, even if you don't see it, if you don't know the results, but just sit, light a candle, put on some music, and connect from your heart to the people who are in distress or who are in a war situation.
Especially if you feel called to do that, if it's your work to do that.
Yeah, that's, I think, part of the work is, it's not my will, but thy will be done. So you have to really listen and tune in, like, what is my role? I think we would never go to North Korea if we were not called, because it's not a holiday trip. It's
not everyone. Well, there are so many places to go to and so many things to do. So everyone does this.
Yeah. So in the end, we came to the sacred and the mystical mountains of Kumgang. There are many mythological stories on Yin, but also it hosts the Buddha Maitreya, energy of the Buddha Maitreya. The Buddha of the future can be born from this place, actually.
You met him also in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And so there are certain really strong power spots that are like doorways to that energy.
Yeah.
And they have to be kept safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had this strong call beforehand that nothing could happen to these kind of places. So imagine bombing or whatever, because I forced a doorway towards. That's why we were really pulled to that place.
Yeah, and in the Himalayas, I felt more the masculine Buddha, and here I felt very much the feminine Buddha. It's a very feminine country, and a very very fine energy.
Yeah, refined, pure, a bit infantile, you could call, like in fairy tales.
Sweet.
Like in fairy tales, yes.
You could also drink from the river here. The nature was so pure. And when we walked up this path towards the sacred mountains, we felt like all the old monks and nuns, they were standing next to us on the trip. And in my iPod, I had music on of Om Mani Padme Hum. And I knew that hadn't been sung or heard for many, many years, because it's highly forbidden. And when all these monks were killed during the Japanese period and all the temples were destroyed, that was the end of Buddhism in Korea, actually. And I felt like we were bringing it back. We were activating again
this great spirit.
The great spirit.
And while you were really into that era of Buddhism and energy, and you saw these monks, I could very much feel the fairy world, the divas of the place. It was really jumping on me. It's not everywhere that I feel that. And I could feel like these elfic nearly energies really waking up and welcoming us, like they're there.
Yeah.
So we were walking up there. Maybe we can also mention there is, like you said, masculine and feminine. There is in the mountains also an inner Kumgang and an outer Kumgang. Inner Kumgang is the more feminine, subtle mountain, and outer Kumgang is more rough, like you can see here on the picture, mountain. But in fact, we wanted to go to the inner Kumgang, but we were not allowed to go.
No, I think during our trip, during the 10 days, they slowly started. We were not a normal tourist group. And then suddenly our guide only to the outer Kumgang.
Because so-calledly the road had been destroyed by the rain.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
Well, then we had a whole day in this outer Kungang, and that was actually the highlight of the whole journey.
It was on the day of the eclipse, so we had to be there on that day, and we were there, the 18th of August.
And for the first time, we could see some old signs of Buddhism, like letters and words and the old temple, because everything else is completely destroyed and not there anymore. So it was very beautiful to see this. Mm-hmm. And then you had quite an experience.
We were walking up towards the cascades of the waters, and we were in fact wondering, because we knew some half an hour further they were the 8 ponds.
Yeah,
it's a mythological story that they tell in Korea, because they are telling mythological things while we were walking, and they were talking a bit about fairies and things like that. And there are 8 ponds where the elves came down and started to come into matter. And we were wondering, will we be going there? And suddenly I could feel we had drunk from the river. I had drunk water from the river straightly, and since I had done that, energies started to move in my body, and I started to feel a lot of things were happening. And I closed my eyes, and suddenly I felt I was in the 8 ponds, so in the more feminine part of the mountains. So I said, oh, stop it all, because something is happening here. And you were feeling quite uncomfortable, because I was like going into meditation. I could not do otherwise than let the energies flow through my body. And what happened was that an enormous amount of energy seemed to be released from that mountain place and from the cascade of water. And I really could not do otherwise than really move into that.
And it was, for me, that was very frightening, because I could see the guards looking and the police that were kind of asking, what is this woman doing? And then we said, oh, you're a bit ill.
I said I was ill in my stomach and I had to sit down. Yeah.
But of course they were suspicious. They were getting suspicious. And that's kind of scary in a country like that, because you can, we heard one story of a young student from America who never returned because he had taken a little flag from a hotel or a poster, and they put him in jail. And when I think after a year, he was released and he was brain dead, and he died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there was this enormous feeling of Quan Yin being released, and at the same time, you were feeling darker and darker and darker.
And that ended in the hotel when I came back, and I went to my bed. And during the night, I started to feel more and more this incredible darkness, and I became paralyzed. I couldn't move my body anymore. I only knew in a little part of my brain, I knew this is not real. I experienced this, but something else has taken over. And what happened was I could literally walk into the concentration camps, and I saw horrible things there, people being heavily tortured. And I could just go to them and say, please die, and release all the pain and the suffering. But my body was paralyzed, and then I had to ask Anne and the others to sit around me to come back, because I didn't know anymore how to come back from that very dark space. Mm-hmm. These are the strange things of light work, is that you experience energies that are impersonal, that are not connected to your personal story, but that are part of the collective field. And you have to know the difference and to work with it, to be able to transform it.
But and not be afraid of what is happening, really trusting the process. It was the night eclipse, it was the moon eclipse. At that very moment, you were like sitting in this concentration camp being tortured. It felt like that. And I could only feel this Quan Yin. I was not even worried in a strange way. I was not as scared. I didn't want to cry out for help. I could only embrace you and and then carry you in this enormous Quan Yin energy that I had received during the day, and carry you through it.
Yeah.
And that's what we discovered more also, that when one does one part of the work, the other one has to keep the other pole.
Yeah.
And the dark and light really go together. That's where the change comes.
So that was our journey to the Kumgang San. There's much more to tell about it, but let's leave it to that, because we had to go back in the end to Pyongyang, where we had our last night. We had karaoke on the last night, which was awkward. I didn't like it at all, but we had to do it. It was how do you say, part of the program.
Yeah, and when we were sometimes invited in, some kind of shows where there were this dancing and singing, and it felt a bit strange because it's really touristic. But on the other hand, it also gave a glimpse of the old culture, of this refined, feminine, fairy tale culture, these high little singing voices, these beautiful costumes, these beautiful, physically beautiful people also. And so you could come into that fairyland also through these things, but it's a mixture. It's a mixture of emotions. And then we went through this in the night. There's an important moment also, I think, especially also to tell because of this period of time. When we were in our hotel the last night in Pyongyang, the last night in North Korea, we were sitting, the five of us. That's the only place where we could really sit in silence and tune in. We were like, feeling in, is there still anything that should be done? I remember you were looking at me like, you want to do something? And I thought, I don't want to do anything. And you felt like I don't have to do anything. So it was like waiting what should happen. And suddenly I could feel an enormous energy. And I was grabbing the hand of my two sisters. We had not had a very easy journey. The sisterhood was not so easy on that journey. We were challenging. We have all three of us very big powers, and we had to relate to each other very much and see, do I trust you? Who are you? And this is really a very known theme amongst women and sisters. And at that very moment, I could feel I have to grab their hands. And I said, we have to do this final thing together, women. We have to connect despite the things that challenge us. And at that moment, an enormous energy went through us, through the women. And maybe we could show the next slide. Oh no, the next one, this one. We could feel, I could very much feel that at that moment, the unification is feminine. The power of unification is feminine. And you can see in Pyongyang, there is this big statue you have to drive through, and it represents North and South Korea, symbolized by women, by sisters. And they have this, in the middle, you see the United Korea. And we could hear also the people telling that they were expecting unification one day, and they still hope to be united again. And they expect this unification from the women. Mm-hmm. And I can feel these days also, I hear my sisters talk, and the women are saying it's so important at this moment in time, where we again start to talk about nuclear wars and all these things, that women unite, because there is some enormous strength and enormous thing to do in feminine unification. And it was not easy, because there were expressions of betrayal and also very dark feminine pain that is destructing things. So there is a lot of feminine anger, a lot of feminine pain and destruction, and but there is a lot of power when we want to surpass that. And we could feel that very well that night in Pyongyang.
And I think in general, what we see in these days is that men tend to go towards war, fighting each other, who has the biggest army, the biggest weapons. It's that patriarchal attitude that's really hurting people, hurting the planet. And we need the feminine. We need the feminine energy to heal, to connect, to talk to each other, to have this compassion instead of war and strife. So I think you're really right in that we need this feminine power to stand up.
Yeah, and the feminine should also make this inside the feminine. Yeah. There is also the masculine inside women. There is also this masculine war with each other, and we have to unite to really surpass this.
Yeah. So in the end, we had to leave the country. We had started to love the country, love our guides. It was really an amazing experience to have them with us. So we gave them this drawing. Mm-hmm. Dear Lee and Kyung-mi, thank you for your great guidance, leadership, humor, and openness. And thank you for showing North Korea to us. We love you. And that love is still there. We still feel we connect to them very strongly. When we left them by train, they were saying us goodbye, and they were having tears in their eyes. And they said, we hope you can come back when we are free. And that was the first time that they showed something of their true feelings. Because of course you're not allowed to tell anything, because we could see there were secret agents already in the train station watching them to see if they wouldn't go escape or whatever, connect to us too much. So we left by train to China. We came back to a more Western society.
We hoped to go back to normal.
Back to normal.
Yeah, but
out of this crazy world.
But then we also realized what is normal, huh? When we were having this train ride to China, we suddenly realized that a lot of things we had met in North Korea were very extreme, of course, but this control and this mental story that really gives us a kind of trauma. We cannot get out of that trauma.
And Big Brother is watching you.
Big
all
Brother
the time.
is watching you. It's hard for us to go from our head to our hearts, because we might feel a lot of pain. There is not this feminine Quan Yin in the West society even to carry this pain. So we saw that there were a lot of resemblances between our way of living and the North Korean
dominance.
Dominance.
Control.
Yeah.
And in our way, it's more subtle, it's more gentle, but it's also there. So we're also controlled, more and more by digital control, technological control.
We also believe in one story of capitalism, which is leading us down. We're not ready to change the story in our head. Yeah. So there are a lot of resemblances between the two, and it was very freeing to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
It's not only North Korea and they are wrong. No, what does North Korea tell us about us?
What is it showing us about ourselves?
About the whole world, the whole humanity. Yeah.
And this is one of our last photos of the team of 5. I'm really proud of the whole team. We were working so well together. And my dear friend Jos was still there. He died a year ago. We really miss him, because he was always so powerful in this work. He could be very focused, dedicated to do this. And
Yeah, and I'm sure when I'm seeing the 5 of us that every one of us has a different story to tell, because every encounter of a country is very personal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Anita had a whole own story, and Elise had beauty with Quan Mi, and had a very important uniting role. And so everyone has a different story to tell. The only story we can tell, of course, is how we perceived it.
Yeah. So there was a last part that we need to tell, which is in Beijing. And here you see a photo of Beijing. Anne had to leave early because she had work to do in Belgium. So you left, and we were with the four of us.
So still the four. The four.
Yeah. And we ended up going towards the Forbidden City. In the middle of Beijing, you have the Forbidden City, which is a square city. We felt we had to go there. And that's where the power is, the power of the Chinese Empire. It's an incredibly strong power spot. But what we didn't know is that behind the Forbidden City, there is a hill in a park. And the hill is the origin of the city, Peking. And on the hill are 5 temples for the 5 Buddhas, the 5 Buddhas of enlightenment. The Buddha Vairocana, the Buddha of enlightenment. And the Buddhas are not there anymore because of communism, of course, but the temples are still there on the hill. And we found them and we said, wow, we found the 5. We found the
in
Buddha in the 4, yeah, behind it. And also so amazing that in the center of this big communist country that's about power and money and control and business, there's still the core of Buddhism, of the heart, of the connection to Quan Yin and to the, yeah. So that was really, this is a photo taken from that temple overlooking the Forbidden City. Mm-hmm. So here you are at the 0 point of Beijing, actually, mm-hmm. in the middle of the town. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you have the question when you do energetic work, does it work? Does it have any use or any effects? Now, there's one rule in this work which says don't be attached to the outcome. You can only set the intention and then let it go, because otherwise you stay too connected to it. Your ego goes into acceleration of,
yeah, or you might do things that need not to be done. So it's very important to let it happen to you, to let your body be a vessel for the energies and not decide to do anything. We didn't want them to unite. We just asked what is happening through us, what wants to happen through us.
You need to become an instrument of love and compassion, and not doing it from willpower or from the mind. So you just have to let it go. And we went home, but there was something that really struck us 1.5 years later.
Can I tell something before?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So in August 2016, we were there, and at the end of 2016, there was a switch of powers in South Korea. Because there was a feminine president. Forget her name. That's not so important. Who had to.
Put aside because of corruption.
She was put aside because of corruption, yes. And she was, I'm sorry, exchanged by, so there was another president coming, the next president, it was President Moon. And President Moon was, he had one big desire. And that was to reunite the 2 Koreas. And why? Because his mother had a sister, and when the 2 countries divided, his aunt, in fact, sister of the mother, lived in the north and the mother lived in the south, and they could never meet each other again. And he knew that was his biggest wish of his mother, to meet a sister again, and the only thing he could wish for was the 2 countries to unite. So he put a lot of effort into that. And he
started the peace process.
He started
between
the
the 2
whole
Koreas.
peace process. So we put this intention of unification, and 4 months later, there is a change of powers, and this intention, the president has the same intention.
Yeah.
So that was very beautiful.
Now, at the same time, there was more and more war talk between Trump and Kim. They were harassing each other and calling each other's names. And basically, we didn't know it by then, but there was already a plan to invade North Korea or to bomb them. But South Korea said, just wait till the Olympic Games because it would destroy the Olympic Games. So wait for an invasion till after the Games. And then the opening of the Games started and we saw the most wonderful show. What happened, it was a stadium that was built in a pentagram, so 5 corners. And there were 5 children in the ceremony going in search of peace, the bell of peace. And they were meeting these mythological animals, the firebird, the white tiger, and the dragon, all the things we had felt encountered in North Korea on a trip with the 5 of us. Mm-hmm. It was like they showed in a spectacle our journey. Mm-hmm. And in the end, they found the bell of peace. The firebird of peace came down once in the 500 or 5,000 years. And the 2 teams of North and South Korea came walking in as one team, one flag. With
one flag of a united Korea.
And this was we unseen. Were crying. It was such an amazing thing to see.
In fact, it was a little story, very funny. We had forgotten about the opening of the Winter Games.
Yeah.
And we were having a walk in a wood, and we just decided to have a coffee in a beautiful place. We entered there, and next to the bar, they had this beautiful saloon with a big screen on the wall, and they were showing the opening of the Winter Games, and there were 2 chairs as if prepared to welcome us.
Yeah.
And there was nobody else in the room, and we felt like, oh no, it's the beginning of the Winter Games in Korea. So we went to sit like a queen and a king on the thrones, and we saw the opening spectacle, like Ton just described. This is part.
And then the bird of peace comes down.
Yes, it was wonderful. We had to see it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Now, what happened during that show? And here are the leaders that were watching the show. Moon is on the left. The sister of Kim Jong-un is on top, and you see Mike Pence, the vice president of Trump. And what happened after the show, Moon turned around and he shook the hand with the sister of Kim. And that was the moment the whole thing changed. And they said, okay, let's start the peace process. And you have to see the face of Mike Pence. It turned sour because he knew that from that moment on, they couldn't go on with their bombs and invasion. They were ruled out, actually, because something completely different had started by this opening ceremony made by artists and singers and dancers. And that's how I understood the importance of art and music that can change the world.
And of spiritual work.
And I think we need that again. We again need these powers from the heart, mystic powers, spiritual powers, to counter the powers of war and destruction.
Unfortunately, now there is a new president
in South Korea.
That is more united, more determined to work together with the United States, and is more severe on the northern brother.
Yeah, very conservative. And they turn back. And you see Kim Jong-un, of course, doing the same thing again. He's trying missiles, and also he retreated in his own camp.
So there was this moment in time in which there was a kind of movement towards possible reconciliation, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well,
not yet.
Not yet, maybe.
Not yet. So that was our story. I hope you liked it, and I hope you understood what we were trying to tell. It's always, you know, you have to use the words to express the experience.
There's so much more to tell about this experience. Yeah, maybe we will talk about it later, and we will add the things we would like to connect for a meditation on the Koreas and on uniting the different camps wherever they are in the world.
Yeah. So if you like this movie, we make more of this stuff. We travel around the world, connecting the dots. We go to sacred places and we write about it. We make these little clips and all the channelings that we got, we also publish them on our website. And the website is called connectingthedots.eu. So if you want to know more, just go there and you'll find much more information. And also books about the travel stories. Yes,
we also have a magazine about our journey towards
very
North and South Korea.
Yeah.
So there you can read the story and see the beautiful pictures and understand maybe a little bit more in detail.
Yeah.
So you can download it for free or for donation as you wish.
So thank you for watching. And also, if you want to see the other movies about Egypt or the Himalayas or Rwanda, they're all on YouTube. So enjoy.
Yeah. See you.
And thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.